Hello everyone, I'm Denise, I'm the pastor here. Good to see you all, and if you're new to this church, I give you a welcome as well. Love to meet you over a cuppa, over supper. We've got a bit of a treat tonight in that Dr Emma Leitch is here to speak to us. Emma did a PhD in theology at ACU. When did you finish that, Emma? Yeah, okay, so it's fairly recent. But Emma's also been researching and writing a book on faith and diversity called Why Welcome Is Not Enough. And maybe in a few weeks' time we're going to hear a little bit more about that too. So would you please welcome Emma Leitch?
Thank you, Denise, and thank you everybody for having me speak tonight. My apologies for how long, I'm not sure your name, I'm sorry, who read the reading then. You did a wonderful job and I'm sorry it was so long. That's my fault. Tonight I am speaking about hospitality and the Eucharist as the paradigm of hospitality. So this comes from a chapter in my book, which is about asking the churches to move toward full inclusion of LGBTQIA+ people. So the Israelites and the ancient Near East cultures highly valued hospitality, and not just hospitality for friends and family. They took the responsibility of providing for foreigners and travellers really seriously. They had hospitality codes, which included not only providing meals and water, shelter and feed for their livestock, but also providing protection. To come under the roof of somebody offering hospitality was to come under their protection from bandits, from neighbours, enemies and wild animals. And in fact, at God's direction, the Israelites assigned whole towns to be refuges for anyone who had committed a crime, an accidental killing, or had come under accusation. Joshua 20 says, Then the Lord said to Joshua, Tell the Israelites to designate the cities of refuge, as I instructed you through Moses, so that anyone who kills a person accidentally and unintentionally may flee there and find protection from the avenger of blood. When they flee to one of these cities, they are to stand in the entrance of the city gate and state their case before the elders of the city. Then the elders are to admit the fugitive into their city and provide a place to live among them. Abraham, there are lots of stories of hospitality woven throughout the Hebrew Testament and the New Testament. In the Hebrew Testament, Abraham shows hospitality to three angels. He thinks they're three men, but they're three angels that are somehow God as well. So this is in Genesis 18, 1-8. And the hospitality that Abraham provides to these three angels is rushing forward to greet them, bowing low, requesting the opportunity to provide hospitality, washing their feet, and allowing them to rest in the vicinity of his tent, while he and Sarah prepared a choice calf and baked bread with the finest flour. Abraham then also gifted his presence as the three strangers ate the meal. Unknowingly, Abraham showed hospitality to Yahweh, appearing as the three strangers, and in return he received the prophecy of a son. We then see that two of the angels go to Sodom, and Abraham's nephew Lot welcomes them to stay at his place, saying, "It is not safe for you to stay in the city." And Lot's hospitality included protecting his guests from the vile sexual violence of the men in the city. We see another story of hospitality when Abraham is very old. He sends his servant to Nahor Nahor is both the name of Abraham's brother and the name of the town that this servant goes to in order to find a wife for his son Isaac. The servant prayed that when he asked a woman for water at the well, that the woman who the Lord was to give as Isaac's wife would offer him not just water to drink, but also water for his camels. Rebekah gave water to him and offered water for his camels, and when asked for hospitality, she invited him to her father's house where he could stay and eat, and there was room for his camels as well. The servant gave Rebekah a nose ring and bracelets. He told Rebekah's brother Laban of the answer to prayer, and Laban and her father Bethuel agreed to Rebekah becoming Isaac's wife. The servant gave expensive gifts to his host family and took Rebekah at her agreement to marry Isaac. An important part of hospitality in the biblical scriptures is the grace with which hospitality is offered. And so in the reading we heard the story of Nabal refusing hospitality to David and his men. David and his men had already extended their own hospitality, unbeknownst to Nabal, in the wilderness by providing protection for his shepherds while they grazed their sheep. Nabal, being ignorant of the history of hospitality, and it only took one question from Abigail to find out about that hospitality, but Nabal didn't. And instead of providing the hospitality that he should have provided to David and his men, he insulted David. But when Abigail hears of Nabal's lack of hospitality, she quickly moves into action as she realises the seriousness of the offence. She quickly provides abundantly for the men and rushes out to meet David. She bows with great humility before David, apologising for Nabal's foolishness. She is wise in advising David not to let Nabal's foolish inhospitality drive him into bloodshed. Sorry. Okay. In the New Testament, we also see lots of examples of hospitality, and I'm just going to mention a couple here. So Jesus speaks the parable of the Good Samaritan, and he's showing the Good Samaritan as the example of somebody who offers hospitality. Luke 10 says, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest and a Levite ignored him. I'm just going to skip ahead. But a Samaritan saw him and took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Jesus then also gives an example of hospitality which is withheld in the parable of the midnight visitor. Luke 11 says that, then Jesus said to them, suppose you have a friend and you go to him at midnight and say, friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread. A friend of mine on a journey has come to me and I have no food to offer him. And suppose the one inside answers, don't bother me. The door is already locked and my children and I are in bed. I can't get up and give you anything. I tell you, even though he will not get up and give you the bread of friendship, because of friendship, yet because of your shameless audacity, he will surely get up and give you as much as you need. We also see that Christians are exhorted by the apostles to give hospitality. Paul says in Romans 12:13, share with the Lord's people who are in need, practice hospitality. The author of Hebrews also encourages hospitality and says that by doing so, you may minister to angels. And Peter urges believers to love each other deeply and offer hospitality without grumbling. Hospitality, then, is an important theme throughout the Bible, but it's more than offering welcome. It's meeting the needs of another, as the Samaritan did for the man who was attacked by bandits. Hospitality is treating the visitor or neighbour with diffidence and generosity, as you would a messenger from God, just as Abigail did for David. It requires giving of yourself, your possessions, your presence to another, as Abraham did for the 3 strangers. It's going the extra mile, as Rebecca did for Abraham's servant and camels. True hospitality is offering safety and protection against others who would cause harm, as Lot did for the 2 angels, protecting them from the rioting men of Sodom, intent on gang raping them. Biblical hospitality does not judge, but it protects, like the welcome into the cities of refuge. I'm preaching to the choir here. In my book, calling for full inclusion of sexually and gender diverse people into the church, I am calling for biblical hospitality. It needs to be more than just welcome into church services and outreach programs. Hospitality needs to include genuine respect as humans made in the image of God, as siblings in God's family. It requires a generosity of spirit, as well as a generosity of coffee and morning tea or supper. I'm asking churches to be a safe haven and not a place of judgment and trauma, as it has been for too long. I am asking that the church as a whole recognise that we have been a place of trauma and lacking in safety, and that we as a church, as a broad church, need to repent of that sin. And going forward, the church needs to actively defend sexually and gender diverse people against those who are judgmental or disparaging. The Eucharist is our paradigm of hospitality. At the Last Supper, before Jesus died, he shared the Passover meal with his disciples. Among the disciples were those who would betray him, deny him, abandon him within the next 24 hours. Knowing this fully, Jesus nonetheless offered hospitality of the Passover meal, which was also to become the first Eucharist, sharing his body and blood with them in irrevocable covenant. Rowan Williams, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, says this: by his surrender into the passive forms of food and drink, Jesus makes void the powerless and the impending betrayal, and more, makes the betrayers his guests and debtors, making with them the promise of divine fidelity, the covenant that cannot be negated by their unfaithfulness. The Eucharist effects the transformation of the recipients of the bread and wine from betrayers to guests, whose future betrayals are already encompassed in the covenanted welcome enacted by Jesus. Jesus' hospitality of the covenantal Eucharist offers a bond deeper than sin or betrayal or differences in theology or personal differences can separate. Rowan Williams continues saying, the covenant is, in practice, the guarantee of hospitality. The other becomes the object of love and trust because invited by God, and so in some sense trusted by God. God's promise to be faithful, even in advance of betrayal, points towards a community whose bonds are capable of surviving betrayal and which thus can have no place for reprisal, for violent response to betrayal or breakage, or for preemptive action to secure against betrayal. Its roots are deeper. I am incredibly grateful for your gift of hospitality to me, and I seek to offer hospitality to you too. Hospitality that loves and cares and protects.